Welcome back to the Overthinking Podcast, where we take all the health and fitness chaos and help you make sense of it. Let's be honest, the fitness industry has a marketing problem. And by problem, we mean billion-dollar BS machines designed to prey on women's insecurities.
From skinny teas to waist trainers to toning workouts, women are constantly being sold things that are at best ineffective and at worst harmful. And most of them come wrapped in a shrink it and pink it style pseudoscience that fear mongers and sends you into a moral panic about foods and our bodies. We made this episode because we're tired of it, tired of the noise, tired of the lies, and honestly, tired of watching our clients try their absolute best only to feel like they're failing when they're actually doing great because someone on TikTok told them carbs after dark were going to make them fat.
And so today we're opening the burn book, not to bully, but to educate. This is your you can sit with us moment. We're bringing facts, not fear. So let's clear up what's true, what's trash, and what can go straight to the dumpster for fitness fads.
But first, oh man, but first,
we have our favorite little game called This or That.
What did we even think of for this or that today? This is going to be on the spot.
Well, let's do, would you rather have nonstop orgasms all the time or nonstop sneezes all the time?
Oh man, this is a pretty terrible one.
Terrible?
I mean, terrible because what? You're in a movie theater and you can't stop orgasming?
I mean, that is pretty tragic.
I mean, on the one hand, it sounds great, but at some point you probably just be tired of orgasming. Is there any gaps between?
I mean, I think let's set a standard here. If you're at 10-minute intervals for an orgasm every 10 minutes or a sneeze every 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Imagine.
I'm picking sneeze every 10 minutes for sure.
Okay. I'm going to pick orgasm.
Every 10 minutes.
Yeah, because I think, people are really good at faking orgasms. I think I could be pretty good at concealing it if I needed to.
All right. That's fair. Yeah. You think that you'd build that muscle enough where you can just hold it in?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd have to just have a lot of oxytocin pumping through my veins at all times, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
I love it.
If you have good boundaries.
Well, let us know what you would choose, orgasm every 10 minutes or sneeze every 10 minutes. But now we're going to get to our topic at hand today, which, as we mentioned, we're going to talk about the burn book of fitness myths that we would like to die. First, I want to lead with a little personal POV. So I remember a moment where I thought being sore meant that I earned my workout, that I was going to see all the success in the world because I was so sore. So I once did the hardest leg day of my life after some time off, and I couldn't sit for an entire week. And I genuinely thought that's what fitness was supposed to feel like. But, what I know now, I know that is not the way.
And when did you find that moment where you're like, okay, yep, I'm on the wrong track?
Because you just burn out. You're like, surely being this sore all the time is not feasible. And then, as you go along, you learn the tips and tricks to progressive overload and, doing the same exercises every single week after week after week and giving your body a chance to kind of adapt to the stimulus that you're applying. And then after a few weeks, you don't get as sore, but you start to see the strength gains.
Yeah, that's a huge one. The fitness fad that really got me was that keto was going to make me lose weight and be skinny and forever and ever, amen. And I know we talked about this a lot last podcast, but that was a really tough time in my life because I wasn't educated that I was probably supposed to also change my training at that time. So I was doing keto, eating a bunch of fat, and then I was starving for carbs after my CrossFit training. So I would eat keto for half the day and then I'd binge sugar at night. And so, all of those kinds of things that happen just end up not really working. And I was just eating more fat and more carbs. And truthfully, I think, being fed that the idea that I'm not going to have any sugar cravings and I'm going to lose a bunch of weight. It's people don't ask why. So I think there's a little bit of yes, the marketing people are going to be doing what they do. And there's paid billions of dollars to do. But as humans, we have to have that level of skepticism. So
Right.
I think,
Do you have like a coach POV? Like, what's an instance where you've had to coach someone through any fitness fad?
Well, the big one is that people thought fruit was bad for a long time.
Because someone on TikTok said bananas are bad.
Because someone on TikTok was like, okay, blood sugar, they spike your blood sugar too much. And then this client was literally eating like berries in the morning, an apple apple before workout, and like a banana at night. And she was like, it's just too much fruit. I'm going to be killing myself. My blood sugar is going to spike. And that's when I realized how confusing it is out there. Like even people who pay lots of money for coaching or who are like really integrated into fitness can still get it wrong because they're fed something that feels really believable.
Yep. So raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by any of the fitness myths that are floating around the internet. We're going to dive into them today. So sit tight, wrap up, let's go. These are all in the burn book. I'm ready to burn them all to the ground.
And we've got specifically 7 because we had a lot. Like in our pre-recording, we each wrote all of the myths, like an exhaustive list of all the myths we think need to be debunked. And we chose our top 7 for you. We know that 7's a lot, but we think that we can cover kind of every topic here. So the first one, and you're here because you want to get strong, you want to learn how to better take care of your body. And we've been fed that lifting makes you bulky, and lifting weights
equates to tone.
Equates to toned. And so let's talk about the myths, the truth, the research that backs it, and then the takeaway that you'll take to kind of better live.
The mic drop moment.
Yeah, mic drop moment where you can really take this information and look at your life and see if maybe you're giving into the fad.
Yeah. So what we hear girls say is that lifting weights will make you bulky, or that they want to do lighter weights, higher reps because it'll tone and lengthen. When the truth is muscle hypertrophy happens across various rep ranges when training near failure. So even if you're 5 pounds lateral raise, you're training 25 reps thinking, oh, I'm going to get tone and longer muscles. No, if you're applying a hard enough stimulus, your muscles are going to grow no matter what rep range you're using.
And people who say that they want toning, what they really want is to build muscle and lose body fat or reduce body fat at the same time.
Yeah,
yes. And so no exercise, like you said, particularly lengthens muscles. You can perform movements in lengthened ranges, but unless you're doing surgery, you're not just going to all of a sudden tone. And so what we want people to know is that hypertrophy can occur with both light and heavy weights. It's a matter of the stimulus that you're getting from the lift. So if you are training close to failure, or obviously safely close to failure, that's where we really see the true hypertrophy gains, where you can gain muscle and lose body fat.
Yeah. And it's also worth saying that women's testosterone is just inherently lower than men. So it's very hard to gain a large amount of muscle mass without intentional effort. We both have been trying to be jacked for 12 plus years at this point. And I think that I'm still pretty small. You're jacked, but in the best possible way. I look at you as someone who is a natural athlete, and you look fantastic.
Thank you. And we see women hyping other women up. Here's what I think that it's worth people to use this term. So toning, if you're someone who's I want to be toned, I want to build muscle and reduce my body fat, use the term body recomposition. Toning just feels very Pilates and light band work. We're not talking about that here.
Yes.
So we'll provide some research around hypertrophy in the show notes. But the mic drop moment here is that if building muscle was easy, the gym would be full of hulks and
by accident.
By accident. So
we're all trying to be She-Hulk, okay?
Yes.
Moving on to number 2. Oh, sorry. You have another point?
No, number 2 is the opposite. So
we're rapid firing. Let's go. Yes. Moving on to number 2, cardio better than strength and soreness equals progress, which we talked about in my POV. So the myths are you didn't work hard enough if you're not sore, or cardio is better for fat loss and than lifting. When the truth is that DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, isn't a reliable indicator of a workout effectiveness. Again, what we know from previous episodes, we want progressive overload. If you're doing similar exercises week to week to week, you should be applying the same stimulus with gradually different differently loaded patterns, whether that's less reps, more weight, or more reps, whatever. We want to apply those progressive overload principles. If you haven't listened to that, go back to episode 9. And strength training preserves muscle during fat loss, which cardio alone doesn't.
Honestly, that could be a mic drop moment in itself. But, we've heard a lot of people say like, oh, I want to like lose weight or I want to tone up, so I got to do more cardio. It's like, yes, you can absolutely lose body mass. You can lose body weight by doing more cardio, all of that. But if you want that toned contour of the muscle, you have to keep doing the strength training. And it doesn't have to always be, to peak effort. If you're in more of a maintenance season, or if you're in, a season where you just can't train as much, like, yeah, maybe running may be great, but it's not going to ever outweigh strength. And it may for a certain amount of time, but really up until like 4 weeks of no training, you can kind of preserve the atrophy. But after about 4 weeks, that's where we really start seeing it.
Yep. So the research says there's a 2002 article, Nosaka et al. We'll put all these in the show notes. But soreness is influenced by novelty and eccentric movement, not effectiveness. Of course, you're going to be sore in the first couple weeks of any block because of the novelty that we just mentioned.
Which means like your body just hasn't adapted to it yet.
That's new stimulus. Mic drop moment. Soreness is a side effect, not a scoreboard. Number 3.
We love this. Clean eating, cheat days, and food morality. So we've been fed all these myths that clean eating means better health, organic means healthier, that certain foods are poisons like dyes and sugars, and especially like artificial sugars, soda, canola oil, all these things.
Yeah,
but the truth is,
people love to villainize like aspartame or carrageenan or whatever all those other like emulsifiers are.
Yeah. And the reason why they do that is because they're really trying to put smoke and mirrors and direct your focus into something that they're selling, and they're going to make a lot more money from. So there is no universal definition of like clean eating. Even as people who've been coaching for over a decade, like we don't dogmatically say this is a clean food and this is not clean food, even if it's organic. So even scary ingredients like dyes or artificial sweeteners can be safe at normal doses, right? What's that saying about the dose is the
dose makes the poison?
The dose makes the poison. So, and you might just need a more balanced approach to your day instead of like completely cutting out a certain food group or completely cutting out a group. In fact, the only time I would tell a client to really cut something out is if they're getting digestive distress or bloating or something like that. And we've already gone through the gamut of, are you chewing your food enough? Are you eating in a relaxed state? Are you, eating a non-distracted? If all those things are like, yep, I'm doing all those things and they're still getting it, then I'm going to say, yeah, take that food out for a couple weeks and let's see if you can reintroduce it.
And a quick little example too of like specifically aspartame, just to make it relevant to, like you may have fear, right? Whether it's right or wrong based on what the internet tells you. An example, right? If someone is drinking diet, or let's say full diesel Coke every single day, wouldn't a better stepping stone to get them to drink water be a Diet Coke where your beverage is now 0 calories instead of 160 to 200 calories? That seems like a better bridge to get them closer to water. And also maybe instead of like 3 Diet Cokes a day, what if we have 1 or 2 and then gradually work? Because we know that like going full hog, cold turkey, look at like anything, right? Smoking, just trying to quit cold turkey rarely works. What we got to do is like parse it out, stepwise it. So.
And I think there's we talked about food morality. There's a big part of this of like right sizing your own guilt about that thing. Mm-hmm. If you've been living under the assumption that soda is bad and you cut it out for a couple weeks and then you have it again and then you just binge on it for the next 3 weeks. Did you do yourself a service? No. Now you're getting into like this shame and blame game with yourself. And that's just not fun. And we think that the most important thing when it comes to clean eating is ask yourself, is this the best decision I can make for myself right now?
Yeah.
Right?
How's it going to make you feel?
If there's an organic apple and a regular apple, you have access to the organic one, sure, get it. But doesn't mean that the non-organic apple is going to be so much more detrimental than the other one. And even the research shows that there's no significant difference in nutrition between organic and conventional foods. This was a study in 2012. And I know a lot has come out about like red dyes as of recently, but I think it's even still, no matter what, I think it's worth it. Is this the best decision I can make at the time? And mic drop moment, you're not unclean or bad for eating a damn granola bar or some fruit.
Or any processed food,
Or
really.
any processed food.
All processed food can be a part of a well-balanced diet as long as we're getting in a couple other nutritional things along the way too. So
Think about like a scale, right? If one side of the scale has a bunch of processed food on it, do you have enough on the other side of the scale to balance things out?
Love
And
it.
again, it's not good side of the scale and a bad side. It's just how it's created. Like,
Yep.
did I pull this banana off the tree? That goes on one side of the scale. The other one, a granola bar, was made in a factory. Like,
Yep.
do you have enough? And only you can know that. And that's where you'll figure it out.
Yep. And it may fluctuate in one way or another given the season. Like if you go through Christmas, you're probably going to have a little more sweet treats than normal, but you might get back in January. So moving on to number 4, food fads and magic fixes. So these are all things like keto diet, like you just talked about, apple cider vinegar that burns fat. We've got coffee enemas that detox the body. We've got waist trainers reshape your body, and sugar-free is healthy. When we all know, or now we know because you're listening to this podcast, the truth is most of these are wellness theater. Apple cider vinegar has minor effects, definitely not for fat loss, more like lining of your throat loss. Your body detoxes via your liver and kidneys, not coffee enemas. Waist trainers compress, not reshape, and sugar-free foods and are often also ultra processed and still lacking in nutrients. So
I think the other thing to notice here is that all of these things are very temporary fixes.
Yes.
Right? Apple cider vinegar, it's going to reset your blood sugar for today, but it's a one-day thing. Why is your blood sugar bad?
Yeah. And also their trends. Look how fast they're in and out, right? Like coffee enemas weren't promoted in the 90s, not as big as they are now. But so just to like summarize some of the research, like apple cider vinegar has minimal impact on weight loss, if any.
Because we know what does impact weight loss, energy balance.
Energy balance, physical activity, managing stress, all those things. We also know coffee enemas are linked to risk of infection and electrolyte balance, not positive health outcomes. Artificial sweeteners are safe when used in moderation. And the mic drop moment, because I've been itching to say this, is coffee belongs in your mouth, not your butt. And you don't need to ferment your insides or corset your ribs to be healthy.
Boom. That felt like a mic drop.
Boom. You got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it is worth it, like to just consider like some of these things that people put out there, like it's good to ask the questions. And especially with the research, like, okay, apple cider vinegar had minimal effect on weight loss. Okay, but if you are trained to manage your blood sugar, figure out what is the root cause of your blood sugar being off? Is it even off? Like, is your fasting glucose, your A1C off or no?
Yeah, how do you know?
Why are you spending $50 on apple cider vinegar gummies? You don't even need to. If they taste good and you want them, go buy something way cheaper.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. The big one, and this definitely has a safe, tender spot in my heart. We'll continue on with kind of the food role here, but 1,200 calories is not enough. If you're listening to this podcast, there are very few, if any, times in your life where 1,200 calories is going to be enough. And the scale does not equal progress. So the myths are 1,200 calories is the magic fat loss number and that the scale is the best indicator of success. Yikes. The truth is 1,200 calories is often not even enough for like basic bodily functions, let alone workouts. So when I go get an in-body scan or a DEXA scan, I'm 5'9", 155, and I have probably like 130 pounds of muscle on my body or lean body mass. So 1,200 calories is like not even close to my basal metabolic rate. My basal metabolic rate, the baseline number of calories that my body burns at rest is 1,570.
Yeah. And so when you say at rest, that's to mean things like
if I had COVID today and I was on bed rest, that's how many calories my body would need to continue.
Well, I want to like clarify that. Like, what are the things that are required, right? We know it's like heart rate, like getting your heart to beat. It takes calories. So this is the basic bodily functions, heart rate, brain activity, all breathing, all of these things, reproductive health, just to maintain your body's homeostasis. It's the minimum amount, which is, we talked about in episode 4, I believe, resting metabolic rate. So that's that base number of what you would need to not even get out of bed all day.
And the other thing is that your calories should also reflect kind of like what you're doing in activity. So if 1,500 calories is my like basal metabolic rate.
Yep.
That's only accounting for everything you just mentioned, not the workout on top of it. So if I wanted to maintain, I would have to add whatever calories that I truly burned on top of that, right?
Yep.
But if I was in a caloric deficit, the lowest number I will give someone is their basal metabolic rate.
Yeah, at the very minimum.
That would only be at a very specific time for a very specific event that wouldn't be repeated multiple times.
Yep.
So at a baseline, I typically tell people who just ask me for macro advice, I'll say, take your basal metabolic rate. If you don't know what it is, go on tdee.com. You'll figure out what your basal metabolic rate is estimated. And then add about 200 to 500 calories on top of that as like your starting amount. And that would probably still put you around a recomp, which is about a 5% deficit.
Yep. And then primarily focusing on like good balanced diet of lots of veggies, going back to that like high volume eating that we did a whole episode on, like filling your plate with like low calorie, high, like low energy dense foods.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. So a couple research points, low calorie diets can reduce resting energy expenditure. So when you're in a prolonged state of that low calorie eating, say 1,200, your body's going to down regulate processes like reproductive health, or you might get a little more brain fog because you're not eating enough. So it's going to start down regulating those things. And that's basically what that means.
And the other thing too, is if you're eating 1,200 calories, you're definitely not eating enough to gain muscle. So if the scale is changing, you're probably losing body fat and muscle mass. And the scale is not a determiner of progress.
Yep.
It's something that's more of an accountability tool, I would say. There is research that shows people who weigh themselves more consistently can stay basically on track more with their fat loss goals because it's on their mind, but it's not because of the scale. It's just an accountability tool. And
if you had someone who wants to use the scale and doesn't have a poor relationship with it, they can view their body weight with no negative feelings. How often would you have someone weigh themselves?
Once a week, same day. And it would be like midweek. It'd be like a day that's like kind of a run of the mill day.
Yeah. I'd even say like even once a month or biweekly.
Yeah, I think once a week or biweekly would be good if, like you said, somebody has, a
perfect relationship
to the scale.
Yep.
If someone has a poor relationship to the scale, I wouldn't have them weigh it at any time ever. I would actually tell them to throw it away. And if we're going to weigh and measure anything, it's going to be a DEXA scan, and it's going to be once every quarter or
a year.
Yeah, maybe. I actually like to test my clients a little bit more. I'll typically have them test if their goals are body recomposition specifically. I'll have them do a DEXA once a quarter or every 2 months, depending on like how urgent the goal is. But the mic drop moment is if the scale was your only measure of success, then you'd think a gallon of water made you gain 8 pounds overnight.
Boom.
It's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Moving on to the next one, lifting is dangerous and deadlifts ruin your back. So the myths are lifting weights is dangerous for women or for anyone, and deadlifts are bad for your back. The truth is that no exercise is inherently injurious than any other. There is no greater risk for exercise than, say, riding your bike or just even walking on a public street. Weight training reduces injury risk because the stronger you are, the stronger the more protected you are from the frailties of the world. You strengthen your connective tissues, you improve coordination, so less risk of falls. Deadlifts, when done right, are one of the best posterior chain movements that you can do. Of course, there is maybe like optimal form, but our bodies are healthy and flexible and pliable. We can move in a reasonable range of motion.
We are so resilient. And I coach a lot of women, especially like who come in and out of pregnancies at times too. And there's just so much fed to us like, oh, your tender little body, like be gentle with it. It's like, are you kidding me? I'm going to push an entire human out of my vagina. Do you think that a deadlift is going to kill me? No.
Right.
You should absolutely, if you're going to do any sort of hinging movement, get some form checks for sure. And there's so much content on YouTube. If you just write deadlift breakdown video, you could find you could die watching deadlift videos for the rest of your life.
Look up some powerlifters, because when you're powerlifting, you need to be the most optimal with your form, because that's what's ultimately going to set your levers in advantage to do the lift better or best. And of course, they're going to have form breakdown when they're on the platform, but they have trained to be able to be at that point, and they're not doing that all the time.
Right. And that's why in my training, I'll have clients only test every 6 weeks. Like I'll have them do like a testing week every 6 weeks, or every 2 to 3 cycles, depending on one, how resilient they are, and two, like I actually think it's more detrimental to not deadlift. I actually, hot take, I think not lifting is dangerous, because the number one leading cause of all-cause mortality is not being able to get up off the toilet. Can you imagine you go out because you can't get off the toilet because your hips are so weak that you can't stand up?
Yep. And, the research says that resistance training improves joint integrity and reduces injury. And additionally, trained spines handle load better than untrained ones. So to your point, when we get 65, 75, 80, and we're hopefully still working out, still mobile, still doing the dang thing, that we can get off our beds or walk through our house fine, right?
Yep. So, and especially for women, the older we get, we know that it's harder. It gets increasingly harder to gain muscle the older we get due to hormone profile. So if you're listening to this right now is your time to start adapting that back for 50-year-old you. And it's very rare that we do things now that make us excited for 50-year-old us. But truly, the hormonal effects that we get from lifting heavy compound movements consistently is not only going to help you now, but it's also going to help 45, 55, 65-year-old you whose hormones need a little boost of testosterone and need to be able to lift heavy things even when you're older.
Yep. I don't remember the actual statistics, but the greatest risk for women as we age is obviously osteoporosis. And once you have one hip fracture, your risk for mortality goes up by a crazy number. I don't remember the exact percentages, but it goes up by a crazy number. So the mic drop moment to this is your body isn't made of glass. It's made to lift. It's made to apply appropriate stimulus in a progressively overloaded fashion, if we haven't made that clear at this point. So mic drop to that. Moving on to the last one,
which I do think could be a little controversial, but let's get into it. Cortisol, inflammation, and overtraining hype. I honestly feel like this could be an entire podcast episode on its own. But the myths that we're fed are that cortisol from exercise is bad. Inflammation from workouts is harmful. And if you overtrain, or you'll be overtraining if you lift more than 3 times a week. And this is crazy to me. Acute cortisol and inflammation are actually beneficial and necessary for muscle adaptation. We actually have to, it's almost impossible to lift in a non-cortisol driven state. I mean, especially if you want to elicit the response to change that we want. So, but chronic stress and lack of recovery, that's where the real problem is. So if you're lifting more than 3 times a week, but you're not sleeping well, you're not taking care of your body, it could very well be overtraining for you. But it's actually, and I say this to my clients all the time, I would like to see you try to risk overtraining, because really what you're doing is under recovering.
Yep, exactly. We know that everything we put in is an input. And so things like, work stress, training, low calorie consumptions, those are all really stressful, right? So if we're not doing anything, if we're thinking about that scale again of how you're balancing your routine, if you're not doing anything to recover, like taking rest days, taking walks to just decompress, set yourself detach from your stressful work day. We need to be doing meditating. We need to be doing things in order to, manage that balance of stress and relaxation.
And help you recover. Because if you're stressed out all the time, your body is not primed to turn that broken down muscle tissue that you just worked so hard in the gym and repair that to stronger muscle later. And I think it's worth it to create a clear distinction between good and bad, like cortisol and inflammation, because there isn't necessarily good and bad, but there are ones that we want to favor and ways that we can use this. So naturally we wake up with high cortisol if you have a normal hormone profile. So the most optimal time to train is actually in the morning because you're using that surge of cortisol to your benefit. And similarly, like with inflammation, if I go punch a wall, my hand's going to get inflamed. It's going to get red. It's going to get swollen. That's a good form of inflammation. But that's like my body's healing process.
Body uses it to heal. Exactly.
Actually, I was talking about this with someone the other day. I did a super intense upper body workout and my biceps were like warm to the touch.
Yeah.
That's good inflammation.
Right.
Like, that's good. Bad inflammation is when actually the symptoms you get from that inflammation happen. So like say you have gut inflammation, you're like bloated and that's an example of like what could be like an inflammation response that we need to investigate. But
exactly. That's just it, right? Like we want to investigate, ask questions. Why do you feel quote unquote inflamed, or like TikTok loves to say cortisol face? Why do you think those things are happening, right? Like, is it because you're eating out of the home and not cooking your own meals for 6-7 meals a week? Like, what is it going on in your lifestyle that is making your body react?
I think cortisol face is really just you're eating a lot of like processed sugar more than what's helping your body. Like
drinking alcohol.
Yep. I think you're eating a lot of, inflammatory food, like things that your body has to work really hard to process. And if you're not recovering, it's not going to process those things. Mm-hmm. If I eat a whole entire carton, box of Oreos today and I got a great night of sleep, got a great workout in, got my 10,000 steps, all my water, I'm happy. My body, the response of my body eating that is going to be completely different than if I had all that stuff after a night out and 16 martinis and, no sleep. Yeah. You have looked in the mirror. You can see that there's going to be a huge distinction between those two situations.
Yep. Or like, we can use the example of, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but Seth, my husband, who's like super jacked, we will go out to eat for pizza, right? And then we go work out the next day and he gets these massive pumps.
Yes.
Like his muscles get so full. Mine do too, but I'm like way smaller than him and his is just like more visible than mine. But like that's because all that sodium is now rushing to the muscles.
And glucose from the pizza.
And you're using it. This is great. So if you go out for a night of pizza, go hit that leg day, hit that shoulder day, go crush it. Go use that food for good.
And that is the one thing I'll always tell people when they start to get down like the guilt and shame spiral around food. And that was truly healing for me too, is that, okay, like I just had this whole box of Oreos and I can either feel really guilty about myself and let that keep me out of the gym tomorrow because I feel so bad about it. Or I can be like, fuck yeah, I've got 400 grams of carbs that I'm going to use now. I'm going to have the best lift ever. And you know what? I might even play a sport tomorrow. I might even also add yoga because I just have more fuel in the tank.
Yep. You've got more energy now. Use it.
Yeah.
So that's the 7 burn book myths. If you think we should do more, I would love to hear.
Okay. The mic drop moment of the last one.
Ooh, sorry, I missed it.
These have been so great for us. Mic drop moment. Cortisol isn't Voldemort. It's part of the process. And I would say same thing about inflammation. Inflammation is not Voldemort. It's part of your healing process.
Yep. All normal bodily responses. So hopefully we've normalized some of these for you and made these feel a little less scary, less fear-mongery, and you can hopefully start to understand some of the pseudoscience and cut through the noise that is the social media these days and stop listening to wellness influencers and start listening to actual people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And if we don't know, we're happy to direct you. And please, please, please utilize the Spotify comments. That's a great place for us to get information and get some suggestions on topics that you guys might want to hear about. And also anything that was a light bulb moment or a mic drop moment for you in this podcast.
Yes. Send us your thoughts and we will see you in
the next episode. And follow Overthinking Podcast on Instagram, Kelsie Michelle and Brianna Lamb. Bye.